Uhuru, Uhuru comrades, I am Tafari Mugeri and I am the chair of the African People's Socialist Party, Occupy Tanzania, and the director of organization for the African Socialist International in Occupy Tanzania. And I will be your host for today. I would like to welcome you on this special edition, special event. We are discussing on the topic of genocide, plunder, and colonialism in Congo, the struggle for the African liberation. Um, so I just want to quickly announce that we have special presenters on this show. The Secretary General of the African Socialist International, Luwezi Kinshasa, will be our main speaker. And we also have the chairwoman of the African People's Solidarity Committee, Penny Hess, and the chair of the Uhuru Solidarity Movement, Jesse Neville. I would like to really acknowledge the leadership of the African Socialist International, Chairman Omali Yeshitela, who is the leader and founder of the Uhuru movement. So on this event, we are going to get very insightful discussions from our speakers on the question of Congo. As we know that the struggle of Congo is the struggle for Africa. And then what we also understand about this whole topic, what we know about it is the fact that we cannot talk about the liberation of people in the world without addressing the colonial question. Colonialism is a very essential and critical of we would like to apologize for that. We just got an interference on this live. But then, as we were saying, the discussion today is on Congo, and this is a very critical question in terms of understanding the struggles of the people of the world against imperialism. The social system that people are struggling against today has been defined by our chairman through the theory of African internationalism as a parasitic social system, is a social system that cannot survive without sucking out the resources of the oppressed and colonized peoples of the world. And this is what defines the status of Congo today. We are going to hear about the history of Congo with regards to people like Leopold II and how Belgian colonialism, as well as the rest of the European colonialism, as well as the US imperialism, how they've interfered in the Congo and the implications of that up to this point. From that area, the region of Congo, we know of some of the outstanding names, such as Patrice Lumumba, who is an African martyr. So the struggle that Patrice Lumumba and the other revolutionaries were engaged in still continues. That revolution was not completed. And our task right now is to complete that revolution that was defeated or destroyed by imperialism. So we are calling on African people to join the African People's Socialist Party and and become revolutionaries and engage in the struggle for the total liberation of Africa and all oppressed peoples around the world. And this also goes to the people who belong to the colonizer nation that are generally classified as white people. Anyone can be a revolutionary. You just have to be on the right side of the question, and you can join the African People Solidarity Committee or the Huru Solidarity Movement. So we are calling this the main aim of this special series is to call on people to take a stance and to join the revolution. Join the revolution. So I want to go ahead and kickstart the show by calling on our first speaker, Uhuru.
Uhuru, Uhuru, Chairman Safari, in occupied South Africa. Thank you for the introduction. And I also want to say thank you to the leadership of APAC for taking this initiative to organize this meeting on the question of solidarity with the struggle for African self-determination, with the struggle for Black power, the struggle for unification of Africa and of the African nation. And I want definitely to appreciate our leader, the founder of the African People's Socialist Party and of the Rural Movement, Chairman Omar Stella, whose book I bought must have been in 1990, and it was reparations now. And that was just incredible. When I read that book, and I always say this clarifies a lot of things for me, put everything in perspective. Reparation, that was really a call that just fired up my imagination because it made sense that Africans should fight for reparations. And the question of Congo today in the struggle for national liberation of Africa is critical. As Fanon said, the Africa looks like a gun whose trigger is located in the Congo. And the whole situation of Africa today is it can be clearly understood when you look at what's going on in the Congo in terms of understanding where we are today, neo-colonialism, the way it came into Africa brutally, the assassination of Patrice Lumumba in 1960. And since that time, the crisis with neo-colonialism in the Congo is always like ahead. It's more advanced. Now we can say it's rotten, completely rotten. 60 years.
Did you sign up for it?
It's completely rotten. And so Belgium, colonialism, and the looting and genocide in the Congo. Now, when we say that, we just want to be clear. People should not understand, should not think that the genocide began in Africa when King Leopold II became or claimed to be the owner of Congo, a country 8 times bigger than Belgium. Genocide started with what we call, what the bourgeoisie refers to as slavery, because we refer to it as colonial slavery. Colonialism didn't start with the Belgian Conference. What we call slavery or slave trade, all that's colonialism manifesting itself as slave trade or as slavery. And Belgium is a direct creation of that process. Belgium didn't exist before. It was created in 1830, and it was created as a compromise between the ruling white power leaders of the time, particularly the British, the power of the Prussia, which is a part of Germany today, Austria, and all these other powers, to control Napoleon, to put limits in Napoleon, the leader of France. As you know, France since the French Revolution in 1789, created a powerful army that has been terrorizing, Europe, trying to dominate Europe, trying to dominate the world, basically trying to dominate the emerging world capitalist system that they're trying to consolidate. And as you know, the bourgeoisie in France is a creation of the stolen African labor, of stolen land of indigenous people in Americas. And so is Belgium. Belgium basically is a part of France and part of Holland. You have the population known as the Flemish, who are basically Dutch speaking. And then you have the Wallons, who are basically the French speaking, and you have a bit of German speaking in Belgium. So to prevent Napoleon, to have a buffer zone between Napoleon and the rest of Europe, they created Belgium in 1830. So before that, Belgium was a part of Holland. Belgium was a part of France. As you already know, France, the modern Europe is a creation of colonial enslavement of Africans and of indigenous people in the Americas. Uh, Basically, is a creation. It came to being through genocide. That's the point I'm trying to make. So Belgium was already guilty of genocide just for being part of the emerging bourgeois white nation that time, created by genocide through uh, the what they call the slave trade and the enslavement of Africans, which we refer to as colonial slavery. I just want to make that point because the history didn't begin either. History of Africa didn't begin in 1885 in the Belgian Conference or when the Portuguese attacked Africa in 1415. But the process we're looking at that has created Belgium, that's definitely something that was initiated since 1415. So I just want to make that point. So we know Belgium is guilty. So is France. So is Belgium. So is England. You know, all of them, all the bourgeois nations, because they are creation of that. Now, with industrialization of Europe, it means that colonialism has to change form. Colonial slavery, as we knew it, was no longer adapted to newly industrialized Europe. So they needed Africans to be colonized, mostly in Africa, not to be deported, kidnapped, deported out of Africa anymore. That's why they called that Berlin Conference. And for many Africans born in the continent, we've been told colonialism began there, when in reality is a lie. It didn't begin there. It's just a new phase of colonialism. So we've been in Americas already. We've been working there in Brazil, US, Jamaica, all these places. And that's really important. I want to make that point so people can be just clear. When we call for reparations, people know exactly what we're talking about. When we criticize the white working class in Belgium, people understand that that all the gains they have made before Berlin Conference was a result of colonial slavery of Africans. Just to be clear, the Belgium coming to Africa did not come to invade the money from Europe, but they came with accumulated wealth they stolen from Africans, particularly in the Americas and other colonized people around the world. So that's the point I was trying to make. So what we have today, we have also a PowerPoint that we're going to use just to illustrate some of the points we're going to make throughout this presentation. So if we can go through the first slide. So as you know, I'm Luwezi Kinshasa, and I'm a member of the African Socialist Party. And this position, the struggle in Africa, the struggle for all Black people around the world is a struggle to free our nation, to free the basis of that nation, which is Africa. And the Congo is just a part of that. And when we say Congo is a part of that, we recognize this is creation of colonizers. They're the one who define the borders, because when they came to Africa in 1415, they didn't find those borders in Africa. So move to the next one, please. And Chairman has been traveling extensively throughout Europe, throughout Africa, throughout the Americas to get the message of salvation of our African nation. That requires the creation of African Socialist International, the African Working Class Mass Lead. So this takes us in South Africa. You recognize the chairman, DC order on the far right, and then I'm on the far left. And then you go director for ASI Safari, shaking hands with Chairman Amadi. Or now these you can see where Congo is located. When we say the when Fanon said the Africa is shaped like has the shape of a gun, which trigger is in Africa. You can see what we call the Congo Basin. So basically, it includes Congo, Cameroon, Congo Brazzaville, Gabon, Central African Republic, Uganda, all these countries around in the middle of Africa. This already tells you that the struggle in the Congo, just if you look at the geography, is a struggle to all the borders, 9 borders. And 9 borders, they also have borders with other countries. So any struggle in the Congo automatically mobilizes 23 countries in Africa. That's almost half of the country in Africa. So just by geography, the struggle in the Congo is a struggle to free the whole Africa. Any projects you may have to do with energy, to do with water, to do with minerals, you're going to find out it's always a strategic question, which basically means every aspect of struggle to free Congo is a struggle to free Africa. So bring down the borders. Just the history of Africa goes really far. You can see this harpoon. Most of the time, these harpoon were used. I think this is the case using bones, animal bones, and this creation, effort to produce life. These efforts to solve natural contradiction. How do you acquire food? How do you reproduce yourself? You can see that effort is being ongoing, relentless. People didn't wait for colonizers, for Europeans to show up in Africa to say, "Oh, how are we going to make this product?" It was not like that. This ongoing process to produce tools, to make tools, to reproduce life for ourselves, 90,000 years ago. And in the same process, there is also a tool known as a shango bone, where you have mathematical, graves marked basically on the bone. And 20,000 years ago, you can see odd numbers, prime numbers. It's just an incredible effort, intellectual effort. You can see, and this is continuous. It takes you straight to Egypt. You can see there is no really gap. It's ongoing, continuous development, which is natural. If you're not oppressed, that's what you do. You're solving the problem for yourself. So you're always progressing. And you can see, some of the evidence of early efforts, to solve problems, to produce tools, to create life for ourselves, free from domination, free from foreign domination, free from colonialism. Just brilliant. You can see, tools using stone, jewelry, just incredible, really incredible. And of course, during that time, people need to know the humanity was just homogeneous. Humanity was Africans. There was no other, you say, ethnic, or to use the bourgeoisie language, there was no other race. Humanity was just black. There was no white people, anything like that until that time. Yes, this is just an idea of people just to know that colonialism is not something, it's been a part of our history. It's a new phenomenon. From the beginning of humanity, we knew nothing else but freedom, just freedom. So what we call colonialism today is a new phenomenon, is a short part of our history, and we are determined to overturn it so that we can recreate a new Africa free from oppression. And when we say Congo was independent, we don't mean the Congo today. These people refer to it as a landmark because when Europeans came in that part of Africa, the first people they met or they encounter was people from the Congo Kingdom. So, and all the struggle that took place to prevent the Portuguese from attacking us and things like that, it has made that part of Africa a reference point. That's why that name of Congo became the name of the Congo today. But the Congo of that time was a bit of Congo today, Angola, Gabon, Congo Brazzaville as well. But it was not exactly what it used to be. So, now people have to know. You just saw the Congo Kingdom is not the only place. All the free political entities we had at the time, they all suffered Portuguese attacks. There were plenty of wars between the Portuguese and the Dutch and the Africans in that part of Africa, which would include Angola and the Congo today, going as far as to Gabon. And that's how Queen Zinga is remembered, because she led the resistance against Portuguese invaders. You also have Kim Pavita is another sister who also led the resistance against the Portuguese. And these two women are probably the two women I know in the past in that region, Angola and the Congo. People even today venerate. You know, you want to be like Queen Zinga, you want to be like Kim Pavita, the Africans, anti-colonialist leaders who organized the resistance against this process that created what we call today capitalism. Yes, well. And we have to know the Catholic Church was like the snitches, like the police. You know, they have all these confession session in the Catholic churches where you go on a regular basis, you confess your sin to the priest, so you can be forgiven. But people didn't realize, but it took them a while before they realized that every time they confessed, they didn't see Jesus or God or anybody else, it was the police that showed up in their home to arrest them. Because every time they confess about something they'd done, and the priest, you know, was in a position to decide, to determine if this is a crime or not. If it was a crime, then they would just make the police and inform the police. And many people, you know, resented that. They came to see the Catholic Church as basically the snitch church. Well, and so in the middle of the 1600s, people, you know, what about the before the Portuguese, before Christopher Columbus got to the Americas, we're talking of a period start from 1415, and when the Portuguese arrived in the Congo, that was 1482, and they already passed in Ghana 1481, Sierra Leone 65. So Senegal 1444. So they already been attacking Africa from 1415 to the time Columbus arrived in Americas. You have something like 70 years. 70 years. The Portuguese have been kidnapping Africans, taking them to Portugal, island controlled by the Portugal, putting Africans to slavery already. Colonialism started already offshores of Portugal. You had Africans there. That's what people need to realize. In fact, I read even the book, some of the first Africans that were taken to Americas, they were the Africans. The Portuguese have already kidnapped for decades and exploiting, colonizing in Europe. Often this is not really told. So that's where they start accumulating what Karl Marx referred to as primitive capital that allowed the Portuguese, the Italians, even to go as far as the Americas, getting information from Africans and getting label, basically resources from Africa. So, and also one of the reasons they attacked Africa first, Europe was aware of the gold of Mali. Remember, Kanka Musa of Mali, he did a pilgrimage in Jamaica, and he has so much gold that the price of gold went down. You remember that? So the Portuguese knew when they came to Africa, they were looking for gold too, you know, kidnapping Africans in the process. And this is just an example of King Nzinga, the royals. Basically, that was their name, Queen Zinga, King Zinga. So that's the name of the royal there. And there are many battles that took place between the leader of the Congo Kingdom and the Portuguese. I remember one is called the Battle of Ambuila. That was in 18th century, 17. I think I don't remember exactly the date, but it was 17 something. That was a decisive battle that broke basically what was known as the independent kingdom. It was dismantled, it was broken, and it never recovered. That was basically how the kidnapping of Africans accelerated in that part of Africa. Well, when we talk about the Berlin Conference, as I said in the very beginning, you just have to bear in mind it's a new phase of colonialism. There were no borders in Africa, and the Africans were already colonized. It's not the beginning, it's a new phase. Africans were already colonized, kidnapped, colonized throughout Americas. And now Europe had access to primitive accumulation that allowed Europe to become industrialized, developed, Britain, France, all these countries that became modernized. Even Britain, was known as we know it. The Union of Scotland, Wales, England, and Northern Ireland, all these were cemented by the colonialism of Africans, particularly in the Americas, the defeat of Napoleon that allowed the United States to become what it became today. All this happened already because of colonialism, known as slavery, right? It's a really colonial slavery. People just need to be aware of that because we're really putting the emphasis on colonialism as the starting point of enrichment, of transformation, of development of Europe. That's the foundation, that's the basis. Without colonialism, you cannot have Berlin Conference, you cannot have industrialized Europe, you cannot have Belgium, as I said, a creation of the bourgeoisie to control Napoleon and things like that. So that's where they carved out Africa. No Africans was present there. Yes, were. And that's the murder of Leopold II. And we just want to make a point here as well. Leopold II was not a new barbarian. He was not a new murderer. He was not a new genocider. George Washington came before him. Thomas Jefferson and all the other United States presidents, they came before him. That's really important to know that. Louis XIV, the King of France, he came before King Leopold II because it's like he was an exception. He was not an exception, and his model, he was inspired by the Dutch. King Leopold II model was the Dutch colonialism in Indonesia. People really need to be aware of that. And the US was the first to recognize the Congo as a colony of Leopold II. And this Henry Stanley, he fought in the US in a civil war, and he also was he's a basically white nationalist. He was born in Britain. He was British, and when he served him, he was a U.S. Citizen, and he's presented as an explorer. He was not an explorer. He was a colonizer. That's how they undermine our brain, our consciousness. There is no such thing as someone we can call explorer, peaceful, loving science, motivated by curiosity, trying to find out how civilization are around the world. No, he went in the Congo in the 1870s for a mission. He was armed to the teeth. He was armed with the most modern weaponry, and he was there to coerce, to force the African rulers to sign contract, to give away our land, our waters, everything to the King of Belgium. That was his mission, and he killed a lot of people on the way. He brags about killing Africans, in the process. So that's Henry Stanley. And so you have King Leopold II, and this is really important part. So Europe is industrialized. The machineries need to consume a lot of raw material. The possibilities of production have increased. So they make all this noise, ending slavery. No, adapting it to the new condition, to the new material conditions. Now they have machinery. They need even a more labor, but in Africa to extract all the material. the gold, the diamond, the trees, everything like that. What Leopold II did between 18 and I would say 98 to 1908, they sent armies, soldiers, the state. The state played a role in facilitating colonial extraction because you need the workers to produce at gunpoint, terror, and you have the army going to the villages, going to the towns, abducting people, kidnapping the rulers in those places. We need 500 men. We need 500 this. If we don't get it, they will kill people. They will confiscate your property, things like that. They will kidnap the wives in particular areas. They will rape the women. They will kill the babies. And King Leopold II, that's the mode of production of colonialism. You know, colonialism mode of production requires killings, genocide, looting. These are not excess of some soldiers who are drunk. No, that's how you produce. You go force people who have no interest to produce for you, to be in a relationship with you, but to be in a relationship with you, to go in the forest, hostile environment, because when we go farming, it's not the same thing as going in the forest. They're two different things. Farming is something we domesticate. We know what to do. We know the environment. But forest is different. You're going deep in the forest, facing wild animals and things like that to collect rubber. This is not something that came from Europe. No, that's naturally produced in Africa, growing in Africa naturally. Europeans under colonialism did not bring any tools. We collected rubber with our own tools, with our own baskets, with our own labor. And with this rubber, the industrial revolution was taking place with the invention of tires by the Scottish, I think his name is Dunlop, I think. The possibility of producing that using rubber captivates the imagination or the markets at the time. So most of the things produced using rubber to make tires, to make coats, to make anything they use today, oil to make, it was produced using rubber. And that killed a lot of people. That killed a lot of people. It was really wiping out the villages. It was work, 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 no rest. If you don't produce enough quota, they will punish you. If you resist, they will kill as to teach the rest of you a lesson. That's how Belgium were able to produce so much rubber. And the soldiers were given basically the ability to use the live ammunition and to justify the use of every single bullet, to bring evidence and to bring bring hands of people, cut the hands to show that you use your bullet at a good use it in a correct way. That's how we came to move from a population, according to Henry said himself, 30 million Africans. That's the estimate they made in the Congo, 30 million people. And at the end of these killings, by 1908, Congo had less than 12 million people. And that's incredible. And it remains so almost until the independence. So genocide all the way, genocide under King Leopold and genocide under the rule of Belgium. Because of that, Leopold II was forced to concede control of Congo as a colony to the Belgian government. Until then, he was basically working on his own control. So that's what the bourgeoisie would say. After that, it's the Belgian government that is in control. Or these are the examples of hands, cuts throughout the Congo. That's how the people were brutalized. The mutilations, that's the act of bourgeois civilization or Christian civilization. Cutting people's hands, is just the level of barbarity, never experienced before in that part of Africa traumatized people. People used to run to the forest when the white man appeared. Even when the white priest appeared in the village got empty. Everyone ran away. Don't want to be next to them. Don't want to be with them. That's how it used to be. Yes, well, of course, with the money, the massive wealth made by Belgium, palaces spring up throughout Belgium. He built magnificent park, magnificent museum. Uh, so massive development of the railway system. So the Belgium became so wealthy that during the First War and the Second World War, Belgium came out of the wars free of debt. They didn't need to contract debt because Congo was paying for all the expenses. That's how significant, colonization for Belgium was. When, on the contrary, the other powers in Europe came after debt, destroyed, diminished with debt and things like that. Belgium didn't have to go through that. And of course, this is just one example. It's not the only one where Africans were used as a toys. They put Africans in a zoo in Belgium during what they call Universal Exposition 1898. And this just a continuation white people in the colony, playing. And that's what colonialism is. Colonialism basically created the white people and it created the black people, the one who is inferior, the one who is inferior. So the existence of whiteness, created the existence of black people as colonized people. That's how they measure the whiteness, yes, we're. And so just very quickly, the history of resistance in the Congo is profound. We can spend all day just talking about different resistance that took place in the Congo. Uh, there is there are many names we can give. We had peasant revolts. We had workers revolts. One revolt I can give you took place in December in 1949. The trade union leaders and his members tried to negotiate a better pay, and the Belgian called them to meet in the stadium, and they shoot them in the stadium. You never heard of that? 1949. The workers were shot at. We don't even know how many people were killed. Just because the people resisted. This is not Lubumbashi. This is the Katanga, where the southern tip, the southern part of Congo. This is no different, from Chapepele massacre in South Africa, or from the massacre that took place in Cameroon. I spoke about this morning. The French opened fire against the demonstration of a UPC, the Union of People of Cameroon. We talk of 5,000 people killed in anti-colonial demonstration in 1955 in Cameroon. Here in the Congo, we're talking of 100 people killed, just demanding better working conditions, better pay in 1949 in the Congo. There was no solidarity from the white workers in Belgium. There was no one day of mourning or anything like that. We just want people to know that we had somebody called Simon Kimbangu. I'm sure he was influenced by Garvey. He started preaching the retention of Africa, redemption of black people, refused to pay tax to white people, and things like that. He was basically an anti-colonial leader. He was arrested by the Belgian colonizer in 1921, and they put him in jail. And he died. They killed him in jail in 1951. 30 years in jail. Any protester was arrested, relegated very far from the place of birth or of origin to isolate them. I can give you another rebellion took place in 1930s. It's known as a Pende Rebellion. It was the peasant rebellion. Those who cut the palm oil nuts tree, the palm oil nuts. You go to climb the tree and bring the colonial regime. The palm oil nuts grow around what they call regime. You bring them down so you can extract the oil. They were the most oppressed peasant you can think in the Congo, and they finally rebelled. And the Belgian open fire. They went to village killing people, 500 people killed. As I say, we can talk about massacres the Belgians committed in the Congo before the rebel massacre by Leopold II. After that, up to the very moment of independence, there was always resistance everywhere throughout the Congo. And the evidence of the Belgian massacres, of the Belgian colonialism, is going to be summed up in these two statistics. In 1927, according to this book written by Dr. Voss, Belgian doctors in the Congo, Lubumbashi in south of Congo and Katanga, 1946, 1949, he said, you're talking about the natality in the Congo. He said the figures going to be summed up in few lines. In 1927, the Congolese population was estimated to be 10 million inhabitants. And in 1947, 20 years later, a complete census exposed the real figures: 10,667,087 individuals. So in 20 years, the population have only grown by 667,000. And when you think during the massacre, the genocide by Leopold II, the population was around 12 million, in estimate 12 million people. So if you say 10 million people, so you can say from 1908 up to 60, the time of the independence, the population was almost the same. So when we had the election in 1960, there was barely 14 million people. You're talking of a country as big as India. You begin to see the scale of genocide, murders, deprivation that took place in the Congo. Infant mortality high, mother mortality high, everything was high. That was colonialism. That was a Belgian colonialism. And it's very important for people to understand that, because it gives us a view, it helps us to understand what unfolded after. So the struggle for independence was not a phenomenon limited to Congo. You heard about the Mau Mau in Kenya, early 1950s, the UPC in Cameroon, really just like the Mau Mau, a really anti-colonial organization that pick up the weapons, the arms to fight the French. It's taking place also from 1955, the Algerian Revolution, 1955 they started. Of course, you have the World Revolution, the Chinese, making the revolution, the Indonesia getting the independence in the late 40s, the Cuban Revolution, the struggle of Africans in the United States, the Comoros, all that's in Latin America. So you have basically a new era in history. Colonialism in white face is no longer possible. And the Prime Minister of Britain, Harold Macmillan, toured Africa, South Africa, Zimbabwe, Zambia, all these countries in Africa. He came back to Europe. He told the white people in the parliament, there is a wind of change in Africa. Colonialism, there is a wind of change in Africa, which means basically white power in white face is no longer possible. He has to change. He has to adapt if you want to save colonialism. So within that process of a struggle, the masses of Africans in the Congo produced Patrice Lumumba. He won the only democratic elections in the Congo and became the only legitimate prime minister in the Congo. And people remember the independence speech he gave. He told the truth. That was a great political education. Even today, educate generation after generation. And that was his loyalty. He's stating his loyalty to the people, to the working class, to the peasant. Independence is only meaningful if it's going to benefit, if it's going to transform the life of the people. What's the point of being independent when things will be just the same as before? Just the small handful of white people continue to live better, and the new appointed ruling class in Africa, the black, the bourgeoisie, and the rest of us will suffer. He refused that. So that was his speech, loyalty to struggle for liberation in Africa. And of course, United States and Belgium did not accept a genuine freedom, a genuine independence, and they intervened. You remember the U.S. became the leader of capitalist world, de facto the leader of Europe too. So anything the Belgian did, the U.S. was involved. In fact, Belgian counterinsurgency could not succeed without the U.S. participation. So a series of counterinsurgency programs, were put into motion. Here you see Chombe, the puppet of the Belgian, greeting the mercenaries. It was hated throughout Africa. How can you use the mercenaries to kill black people? Yes, were. And so these are Chombe played a key role because Chombe in July the 4th, just a couple of days after the speech Lumumba made for independence at the Independence Day, Chombe declared the secession of Katanga. Katanga became independent country. It was just a brutal assault on the struggle of the African people, and particularly on the anti-colonial government of Patrice Lumumba, because Chombe didn't control nothing. The constitutions, everything was run by the Belgians in Katanga under the secessionist government of Chombe. And that was in July, a couple of days just after independence. And in August, first week or second week of August, I think it was, there's another guy called Kalonji, another puppet of the Belgian. He declared the secession of Katanga. Then you have the person standing on the right of Patrice Lumumba, that's Kasavubu. All these coups failed to break Lumumba's government and the confidence of the people into Lumumba. So Kasavubu was given the task to initiate a constitutional crisis by going to the radio and declaring that Lumumba is no longer a legitimate leader. When he was an honorary president, he has no power to go to the parliament or to the radio to say anything. He was an honorary president, just like the president of the Queen of England. She has no power. The power is in the hands of Prime Minister. And they all failed to bring down Lumumba. And then Mobutu, who was in the inner circle of Patrice Lumumba, he was a member of the party of Lumumba, the MNC. He was the newly appointed head of army. It's called the Africanization program, where Lumumba is replacing all the military who are white, the position of command of the army, and replace them by Africans. And Mobutu was the first to benefit. But Mobutu was also a CIA agent. So the picture you see, you can see the US ambassador in the middle, and you go the Negroes, Mobutu on the right, and on the far left, you see Nendaka, also part of Lumumba's party, MNC, the deputy president of the organization. Should Lumumba die, this guy, Nendaka, on the far left will become automatically the president of MNC. And on the far right, there's a Bomboko, another sellout Negro who justified the occupation, the military occupation of Congo by the Belgians. He signed the letter to authorize the Belgians to bring the armies in Congo when they had no right to have any of the soldiers in Congo. He signed it, and the Belgians in the UN said, yeah, we have the authorization to be in the Congo. This is the letter signed by this guy. And in between, you didn't mention the UN. All these, were done with the benefit of the UN. The first operation of the UN to protect white power in Africa was done in the Congo to bring Lumumba down. Lumumba was advised, we don't know about the petit bourgeoisie and all these people, that you need to bring the UN as a neutral force. But in fact, UN was not a neutral force. And this also, you know when the chairman say the national liberation movement in Africa everywhere is being fought within the colonial borders, reaches a limitation. This is an example of it. Also, when you hear the chairman criticizing Pan-Africanism as a strategy that caused the downfall, the death, even we can say, of Lumumba, and also Nkrumah, is correct, because Pan-Africanism did not sum up the UN is a tool of imperialism. They didn't sum up. If you bring the UN in the Congo, you bring in US imperialism too. They didn't sum it up. They didn't prepare. They didn't basically sum up why power exists as a world international power. So they are not just represented by the armies, but they are also in every so-called multinational institutions created to facilitate the interest of imperialism. This is another evidence imperialism could not function in its own face. It has to hide. So the UN was one of the face they took to hide. So here Lumumba is arrested. It's a long process. Every new colonialist are presented just shortly played a role. Mobutu, Chombe, Kasavubu, and they all played a role. They're all united. And Mobutu, in this picture, you can't see him, but Mobutu is there. And that was sometime in September. And no, that's when they capture him back to Kinshasa, November, I think it was. And of course, in 1961, January, he was executed. Yeah. And of course, Lumumba was killed just as the Belgian, the US leaders, the British leaders, the German leaders have been killing Africans with colonial brutality. Because being colonized, it means that there is nothing sacred. There is nothing to be respected about Africans. There is nothing to be guaranteed for our safety or for our humanity or personality. Everything is at the will of our oppressors. Rape African women, dismembered African women, feed her to the sharks, do everything. So what they did to Lumumba, exactly what they've been doing all along. That's colonialism. So Lumumba just died, just like most of the colonized people have died, with no burial, which is against African culture, because we created burials. We are no nomadic people. We created agriculture, which basically is linked to people being sedentary. So when you're a sedentary population, you bury your dead. Those who die, you're gonna bury them. And so that was just is just complete disregard of a tradition and culture and things like that. That Lumumba has no barrier, and he's not the only one. There are millions of Africans. That's colonialism, and all these things, they are characteristics basically of the brutality of the bourgeois state, of the bourgeois colonial state, and also in its form of a neo-colonial state. They're doing the same thing today. Uh, Today, there is a struggle throughout Africa. Neo-colonialism clearly is in crisis. And the only way to prevent the people from going forward, they're using extreme violence, but it's not working. The amount of people killed in the Congo, 10 million, you would think people should be quiet, but it's far from being quiet. People are asking for the struggle. People are asking for freedom. People are asking for economic development and things like that. But what is missing, as in every place, everywhere in Africa, is that the avant-garde. Those who will be able, the party that will be able to draw all the lessons from the struggle of the past, so we can complete the Black Revolution. And those lessons, they are embodied. I would say they are in African internationalism. If you want to know why revolution was defeated in the Congo, why Lumumba was killed in the Congo, you have to study African internationalism. That's where we are today. So the struggle of today, the presentation I did today, that's African internationalism in action, knowing where we're coming from, knowing why we're in this situation, but most importantly, we have a plan for the future that can only be captured by the African working class. And that's why we did this program. So we want honest, genuine forces or white people to have to take on the responsibility to join the struggle to destroy parasitic white power, parasitic capitalist white power, and be in solidarity, genuine solidarity with Black power, which is basically the road to build a new world. I think that must be the last slide. Yeah, that was the last slide. So that's why we're having this meeting. We want to show you basically a short, history of the struggle of colonialism attack on Africa, particularly in the Congo, and the resistance that was born against that colonialism. Also, the intervention of the United States and Belgian and other Western powers to destroy that revolution. But as Fred Hampton said earlier on, you can kill a revolution. You can't kill a revolution. Today, the presence of the African Socialist Party trying to organize Africans around the world, where Africans in Africa and Africans in the Congo is just an example of that. And now we are in a new place where we want to mobilize white people in Europe, not just in America, in Europe. That's where white people run away from poverty came from. So it's important that to have the APAC in Europe and Africa. And this is also the truth of the colonized criticizing Europe, the narrative of Europe that actually why you left Europe. You know, you leave Europe because you had an excess of wealth or civilization, but run away from poverty, from disease and things like that. And that truth is not told because Europeans in Europe here always speak of leaving Europe, going to spread civilization. But the presence of APAC in Europe will be just reversing that narrative in reality, because coming from the US, things like that, Europeans coming home with the truth why they left Europe, I think is also part of the narrative. So the Europeans in Europe, they are not different from Europeans in America, because they tend to say we are not like in America, they are excessive and things like that. No, colonialism started from Europe. They exported it in America. So you can't say that Europe is different from America. They're learning from Europe. United States learned from England. Canada learned from France. Brazil learned from Portugal. Mexico learned from Spain. That's really important for us to say. So we want to build a new world, and that's what we are today. So I just want to say thank you to the APAC. Thank you to the chair, Comrade Pai, for leading this meeting. And I look forward to the discussion. And I think we are really in the right place to build a new movement, to win white people to join, be in genuine solidarity with the struggle for Black power in Africa. That's what the struggle is everywhere, in every country in Africa. And and to win Africans also who are listening, who are watching this program, to join. It's really time to capture our future, but you have to be part of the revolution. That's where we are here for you. So you can see where to go if you want to complete the struggle for Patrice Lumumba and so on. So,
Horo SG Luwezi Kinshasa. Thank you very much, comrade, for that presentation. That was excellent. As you can see, I have my pen here. I've been taking some notes. I hope everyone has been doing the same. And the highlight really for me is that Africa really was once free, and what we are fighting for is not something that we just imagining. We were once free, and that's what we're fighting for, to regain our freedom. So the struggle for Congo is really the struggle for Africa. And I just want to encourage everyone to share. Please share the live, share, and also send your comments and questions, and they will be addressed right here on this live. So next, I want to introduce the chairwoman of the African People's Solidarity Committee, Chairwoman Penny Hess, who has been on the trenches for decades, since the 1970s, and she's still working tirelessly, winning white people into the African Revolution, into the project of the African Revolution. And so just want to welcome her, Penny Hess. Uhuru.
Uhuru. Thank you, Chair Tafari. And it is a great honor to be on this program today. Thank you very much for inviting me. And I want to salute Secretary General Luwezi Kinshasa for that brilliant presentation and for all the tremendous work leading the African Socialist International around the world. And I want to begin by saluting my leadership, our leadership, the African People's Socialist Party, Chairman Omali Yeshitela, who founded the African People's Solidarity Committee in 1976, and who has fought his entire life for the freedom and liberation of Africa and African people around the world. He has created an understanding of the world, a political theory called African internationalism, which sees the world through the eyes of the African working class, that enables and empowers African workers wherever they have been forcibly dispersed around the world to come together to defeat once and for all this brutal, parasitic system of imperialism and colonialism, and to liberate Africa and return its stolen resources, which is the essence of reparations. I also want to salute Deputy Chair Ona Zanea-Shatella, who is our leadership as well in the day-to-day work, in particular of the African People's Solidarity Committee, and to make it clear that we are a white organization under the leadership of the African People's Socialist Party that was formed by the party for the strategic purpose of extending the African Revolution into the belly of the beast, behind enemy lines, into the colonizer population, to win other white people just like ourselves to jump off this pedestal that sits on the backs of the oppression of African people and oppressed and colonized peoples around the world, and join in genuine solidarity with the struggle for the liberation of Africa and African people, led by the working class, the organized working class, which is the vanguard party of the African People's Socialist Party, and to win reparations to African people. So again, it is a very great honor to be here today. And as Secretary General laid out in his brilliant presentation, that one of the reasons that the African Socialist International is holding this event today is to begin to organize and raise this question of the responsibility of the colonizer nation in Europe and in Africa and elsewhere in the United States and around the world where white people are. Because everywhere there is European colonialism, there are the colonizers, the white colonizers, North Americans, Europeans who have gone there to carve out a life of resources and opportunity for ourselves by stepping on the backs of the colonization and participating in the colonization and the terror against African people and oppressed peoples elsewhere. And that it is our responsibility to begin to open up this question of who we are and what it is that we have to take on. And this question of reparations, what does the colonial question mean for us? What does it mean that African people are colonized? And that the party, the African People's Socialist Party, formed the African People's Solidarity Committee way back in 1976, based on the understanding that capitalism was born off of Europe's assault on Africa. So that imperialism is not something that came later, that came in a later stage of capitalism, but imperialism is how capitalism was born. The assault on Africa, the genocide against the indigenous people, the genocide against African people, the colonial violence imposed every day off of African people's lives and their resources. And that when we look at the Congo, we're talking about 600 years of colonial atrocities backed up by the general white population of Belgium, of the US, and the world. And that we're talking about incredible violence. We're talking about a place where under King Leopold, there was such violence against African people that there were mountains of hands from the mutilation of African people, from the violence of cutting off their hands. There was starvation, there were hangings, there were shootings, there was rape. And we see rape today used as a continual method of war, a weapon of war against African women, men, and children by US-backed forces in Congo today. We have seen forced marches, forced exposure to weather and to diseases, without medicine, without food and water, torture, mutilation, forced labor of children, which we see today. Sexual violence as a weapon of war, as we said, that we still see that in US-backed forces coming over the border from Rwanda and Uganda, backed by the US, armed by the US, funded by the US in order to safeguard the coltan and the other vast resources of Congo, which belong to African people. And that we see that murder to maintain the colonial domination of African people. And we see that control of coltan in particular, but so many other minerals and precious metals and other kinds of resources in Congo, as we know, but that in particular coltan is necessary for the use of the computers, for phones, for airlines, for cars, for the life of the white world today. And that Africa and in particular Congo has the vast majority of the reserves of coltan in the entire world. And the situation of the poverty, the violence, the colonial domination, and the conditions that exist for people in Congo today and have been throughout the world is not something that we're taught that, oh, we worked harder, so we have saved our money and we have resources and we have all of this, but African people, unfortunately, are poor, and that we should send them a few dollars every month so that we can help them. But in fact, this is a total lie, as Chairman Omale Yeshitela has taught us, that what the chairman calls the inescapable dialectic, the fact that in order for us to live the life that we live of prosperity, of democratic rights, of opportunity to climb up a ladder of success requires the conditions that exist in the Congo today, requires violence, death, colonialism, poverty in Africa and throughout the world. They go together. That is capitalism. The problem of Congo, as the chairman says, is not a deficit of capitalism. This is the capitalist world and the capitalist necessity. And I would like to just read a page here from the Chairman Omale Yeshitela's book called the Vanguard. This one is called The Vanguard, and this is his chapter. Let me just finish that. The Advanced Detachment of the African Revolution. And this was the political report to the 7th Congress of the African People's Socialist Party, written by Chairman Omale Yeshitela in 2018. And this is from the chapter called The Theory of African Internationalism. And the chairman is saying, Europe's attack on Africa was effectively an assault on Africa's ability to produce life for itself. This assault has had the effect of pushing Africa and Africans out of history, history being the summation of the ongoing struggle to produce and reproduce real life. That is a profound statement. That is a profound statement that African people for the last 600 years, since the beginning of the assault by Europe onto Africa, turning African human beings into commodities, trafficking African human beings into forced labor for their entire lives, working them to death in the Western Hemisphere. This is what produced the wealth of capitalism. This is what produced the ability of all white people to sit on the pedestal of the oppression of African people and to be part of the colonizer nation, even those among us who are the least of us in terms of wealth and prosperity. All of us sit on this pedestal. And that when we think about the fact that it is, as the chairman said, the natural thrust of human society to find the ways to produce life, to produce the necessities of life, and to be able to reproduce life, produce children, to be able to continue on with humanity. And that is the essence of life on this planet. And but for African people, they have produced and reproduced real life for white people, for Europe, for others. They have built the roads, they have cleared the forests, they have picked the cotton and planted the rubber. They were forced to harvest the rubber. They were forced to harvest the sugar and the indigo and all of the tobacco and all of the products and commodities that created the vast wealth of the United States and Europe that we see today. This was the birth of capitalism. And the chairman says that slavery, genocide, and colonialism are the stuff of which capitalism was born. African enslavement was the first capital in the development of capitalism. The prevailing legal system, culture, religion, and general philosophical outlook or worldview constitute the superstructure of capitalism thus conceived. This superstructure is a natural product and a reflection of this economic base of colonial slavery. Slavery and colonialism gave rise not only to capitalism, but also to the capitalist and working classes alike of Europe and North America. The workers and the bourgeoisie, the two primary capitalism defining classes, have occasionally fought battles with each other since their inception as contending social forces. Nevertheless, they were born and developed on a platform of slavery and colonialism. Consequently, what is often called a class struggle inside the US and Europe is actually a contention among the workers and the ruling class for control of the parasitic capitalist pedestal and its stolen resources. The parasitic foundation of world capitalism continues to exist up to now as the true economic base on which the entire superstructure of the capitalist-defined, capitalist-dominated world rests. The total existence of white people and their ability to produce and reproduce life is dependent on this parasitic relationship that came into being with the attack by feudal Europe on Africa and the world. And if we do not begin with that premise, there is no way that we can be progressive. There is no progressive. There is no, saying that, well, it's all progressive except for the question of African people, because the question of the colonization and oppression of African people is the critical question in the world. That's why capitalism cannot be reformed. It must go. It cannot be reformed because it was born parasitic. It was born attacking African people, committing genocide before there was a word that Europeans even had for that. Before white people killed other white people in Europe, all white people were united to slaughter African people on the continent of Africa behind King Leopold, or in what is now Namibia, in Southwest Africa, in what is now South Africa, in what is now Zimbabwe, which was called Rhodesia. All throughout Africa is this history of incredible violence that continues today, that is taken for granted by Europeans and by white people everywhere. That the chairman has said, Secretary General Luwezi just said, that that colonialism is everything that is the will of the oppressors, whatever the colonizer wants to do, because the colonizer has the power of life and death over the colonized. And that the chairman has defined the fact that wherever African people are, they are under colonial domination. And that is just as true here inside the United States as it is in Africa or any place else in the world where African people are. It is not a problem of racism. We cannot talk about what white people have been complicit in carrying out, have acted out for the interest of colonialism, for our bellies and our pocketbooks here and around the world. Everything that we do and take for granted every single day. And we can't talk about this violence, this suffering, the fact that the majority of African people live on less than $2.50 a day, if that, while we expect to live a prosperous life with unending possibilities for the future based on that reality that this is colonialism. This is colonialism inside the borders of the United States, just as it is. And we can't talk about these conditions and say that it is a problem of racism, the ideas in white people's heads, that somehow, a struggle against racism means that it is up to white people to clear our brains. And when does the criminal ever have the right to determine what the punishment will be? That it is, we are responsible to the people on the planet Earth, and we have the opportunity under the leadership of the African People's Socialist Party to begin to see the world as it really is, to begin to go into white society, to organize other white people, whether here inside the US or around the world, in Europe, in Africa, to win other white people to recognize that the resistance of African people is fierce. It is creating the crisis of imperialism. It is creating the reason that imperialism can't even find a leader inside of the US that can lead, that has the Trumps and the Bidens and all of the other corruption and just incompetence that we see that is there. It can't lead in the same old way because the African working class is rising up. It has forced out in this most recent period following the police murder, the colonial police murder of George Floyd here in the United States, and the profound leadership of Chairman Omali Yeshitela and the African People's Socialist Party demanding and putting out that this is a struggle against colonialism. This is not racism. This is not the result of the ideas in white people's head. It is the result of the material basis of the lives of white people on the pedestal of the backs of African people, this parasitic relationship that we carry out, and we have to begin wherever we are to look at this truth. I just wanted to say that when we talk about Congo, we're talking about an example of the worldwide nature of the colonial domination of African people. For one example, the US ambassador from the US to Belgium at the time that Leopold II was the king was Henry Sanford. He was the US ambassador. And he actually took a job under King Leopold to go into Congo, and he was one of the overseers of the plantation and carried out much of the actual genocide against the people and the torture against the people as well. And then later, he became Leopold's public relations person inside the US and basically sold the rubber of King Leopold's plantation to America, to the rubber companies that were burgeoning as automobiles and bicycle tires were becoming a necessity in the United States. And Sanford bought land in Florida, orange groves, for his retirement. And he founded the town of Sanford, Florida. And Sanford, Florida, which is not too far from, really from St. Petersburg and Orlando, where the Disney World is where Trayvon Martin, a young African, as most people might know, was brutally killed in a colonial murder there in Sanford several years ago in a case that resounded around the world. So there is this connection to Congo. And I am here in St. Louis, where the party has the Black Power blueprint, this incredible African workers' self-determination project on the ground, led by Deputy Chair Ona Zene-Shatella in North St. Louis, the most impoverished neighborhood of the city, where African people catch hell, and where Mike Brown was gunned down by colonial police in 2014, another case that resounded around the world. And that here in St. Louis was in 1904, and Secretary General Luwezi mentioned the human zoos. Well, 1904, St. Louis had a World's Fair, it was called. It was an imperialist fair. It was a fair about white power dominating the world. And there were 10,000 people in that World's Fair who were in human zoos. Africans from different parts of Africa, indigenous people, Arab people, people from Pacific Islands, and oppressed and colonized peoples around the world. And one of those in a human zoo his name was an African man, Ota Benga was his name. And the coordinators of the World's Fair here in St. Louis bought him from King Leopold and brought him here from Congo. And he was viciously attacked by vicious white nationalist United States men and women during the World's Fair. He fought back, and later he committed suicide in the United States. This is the world system. Wherever African people are, they are colonized. And, you know, we look at today, again, that the US-backed forces coming out of Rwanda and Uganda that were, you know, perpetrated by Clinton, Obama, and Susan Rice, who was almost named to be the vice president and whom I'm sure will have a high-ranking role under the Biden administration, that funds and has played a key role in what is happening in Eastern Congo today in terms of the violence and the murders, and slaughter and genocide of at least 10 million Africans in Congo in the last 10, 15, 20 years. So, you know, when we look at this reality that colonialism means violence, colonialism means that African people have no ability to create life or recreate life for themselves ever. And that everything that they have created is for others, for white people, for us. And this world is not going to stay the way it is, because there is the African People's Socialist Party. It is determined to be free. This whole multi-generational struggle for the liberation of Africa will be complete. The African People's Socialist Party is winning. It is building, as you can see, throughout Africa. It is going to be free. And in order for Africa to be free and genuine reparations to be paid, it means all of the stolen resources must go back to African people, and that US imperialism, British imperialism, colonialism, imperialism must be wiped off the planet. The capitalist system must go. And for all of those white people who say that they are socialists, to say that they want to be part of a new world, the only road to socialism is painted black. It is led by the African working class, because the class contradiction, as the chairman has said, is located inside of colonialism. This is the understanding of African internationalism. This is the future. This is the future. White people who stay on the pedestal will go down with the pedestal. If we want to be part of creating a new world, if we look at this world and see all of the conditions around the world, and we hate what our governments are doing in our name, if we want to open our eyes and be more than just swimming in our stomachs and our pocketbooks and all the stolen resources, and we want to save this planet, then we have to be organized under the leadership of the African Revolution. And we have the ability to do that by joining the African People's Solidarity Committee. I do want to say that the Uhuru Solidarity Movement, which is the mass organization under the leadership of the African People's Socialist Party and the African People's Solidarity Committee, has members in over 150 cities inside the United States. We're going to build in Europe. We're going to build in Johannesburg. We're going to build in Cape Town. We're going to build in with white people throughout the continent of Africa. If we want to survive, if we want to live, if we want to be part of any progressive movement, it begins with the leadership of the African working class. And reparations are owed. We must return reparations as the return of the stolen wealth into the hands of the African working class, which is the true redistribution of the wealth of the world. We have the ability to join this. We have the honor to do it. We have a job to do. We can look at the world. We can look at Congo. We can look at the conditions in Africa and say that we can't sit by. We've got to do what our responsibility is, our assignment inside the belly of the beast, to be the voice of Black power and white face. That is our future. Uhuru and unity through reparations.
Uhuru, Chairwoman Penny, that was excellent, very insightful as well. And I hope that, actually, I'm sure that the viewers have learned a lot from this. And I'm just hoping that white people that have been watching since you've been talking, Comrade Chairwoman Penny, and that will recruit and call on more white people that that claim to be concerned about what is happening in the world. We're saying that the main contradiction, the locus of the whole contradiction in the global economy is concentrated in the colonial question, and this is what we are discussing about here in terms of Congo. So thank you very much, Chairwoman Penny Hess. So we are going to move right along, and I really want to take this opportunity to call on African people wherever you are. You might be in the Congo, you might be in South Africa, you may be in the USA, because we recognize the fact that the dispersal of African people right now, the fact that sometimes the chairman was saying earlier that sometimes you can't even understand one another in terms of language, is a consequence of Africa being dispersed through the attack but by Europe, which actually transformed the whole world into this single economy, this parasitic economy. So African people, we have a responsibility. We have a responsibility to define how our future is supposed to look like. We cannot be bystander. We cannot depend on prayers. We have to get organized. We have to become the vanguard of the international revolution against imperialism in particular. So we are not just talking. As we said, Luwezi Kinshasa is the Secretary General of the African Socialist International, which is building across the world. And Chairwoman Penny Hess is the leader of an organization that is winning membership of white people in Europe and in other parts of the world. And like she said, we have to see the organization of white people under the leadership of the African revolution, even in other parts of Africa as well. So I want to call on everyone who is interested in committing themselves to fighting for the total liberation of Africa and African people and transforming the world to join the African People's Socialist Party. Go to apspuhuru.org. It's apspuhuru.org. And then you will find everything, the information, the program of the party, the principles of the party, what the party stands for, and then you can also sign up and we will contact you immediately. It doesn't matter where you are. You don't have to be in the US, you don't have to be in Congo, as we are talking about Congo, because like we said, there's a single economy, and we have to fight to destroy the parasitic social system. The parasites have to go, especially in Africa right now. All these neo-colonialists, they have to go. They have to go, but they cannot go out of their own will. We have to get rid of them. And the best way, or the only way for us to effectively do that, is if we organize. So join the African People's Socialist Party. Join the work. Be a revolutionary. Organize with the advanced detachment of the African Revolution. So that is the call. Go to apspuhuru.org, and then we will contact you. You don't have to be a philosopher or a revolutionary already. As long as you are concerned about what is happening in the world, you can learn with us, you can train with us, you can go on the program, and then we build this revolution. So I want to move us right along to the next segment of this magnificent program. And I want to call on the chair of the Uhuru Solidarity Movement, Jesse Neville, who has been a freedom fighter for a number of years. He is a magnificent leader fighting to advance the African Revolution beyond the enemy lines, as Chairwoman Penny has said, recruiting and winning people, white people, to respond to the call for the reparations to African people. And he is here, and he is going to talk about why it is important for white people to join on this on this project. And so I want to go right away and call on Chairman Jesse Neville. Uhuru.
Uhuru, thank you so much, Chairman Tafari. And I just want to start off by saying reparations now, and long live Patrice Lumumba, long live the African Revolution. And thank you so much to Secretary General Luwezi Kinshasa for the amazing presentation, a very, very profound presentation, as well as Chairwoman Penny Hess, my direct leadership in the African People's Solidarity Committee. For those were two just incredibly powerful and moving presentations. And I want to join in saluting our leadership, Chairman Omali Yeshitela, the leader of the African Revolution, who has kept the fight, who has kept the struggle of Patrice Lumumba and all of the Africans who have fought and died in Congo and elsewhere alive today with the struggle to free and unite Africa and African people everywhere. And I want to salute Deputy Chair Onezene Yeshitela, who plays an equally significant role in so many different ways, materializing the vision of the new world, materializing the vision and reality of a free Africa, a free African people. And I want to just say that the presentations that were given by Secretary General Luwezi and Chairwoman Penny Hess should hit us white people right in the gut. We should feel that right in our in the marrow of our beings, that this is not just something for us to feel like we're learning something new and we are able to engage in a more effective debate or something to that effect, although that will also be the case as a result of understanding this information. This is a call to action. This is saying that we have a responsibility, where there is an urgent need and responsibility for us to jump off this pedestal, for us to reject the legacy of the colonizer, the settler that we have inherited as white people on this planet. All of the wealth, all of the resources, the coltan, the gold, the oil, the human beings that we have profited from as white people through this bloody, brutal, violent, horrific process of colonial theft and extraction that's been described in this event, that we can do something about it, that we must do something about it. But the only way we can truly do something to change this is by joining under the leadership of the colonized, enslaved, exploited, oppressed, brutalized, raped, pillaged African worker, the African working class that is leading the struggle, that is fighting to recapture the ability to reproduce and produce life for themselves, not for us, not for our benefit. We have to join under the leadership of the African Revolution. And we can do that by joining the Uhuru Solidarity Movement. Chairman Omali Yeshitela and the African People's Socialist Party created this weapon in their arsenal to say they are going to extend the reach of the African Revolution into the colonizer settler population. The African Revolution is going to recruit the settlers and the colonizers to turn our backs on the colonial ruling class, to turn our backs on the colonial capitalist system, and to unite with the future and aspirations of Africa and African people. That we will reject this world where our dreams and aspirations, as the chairman says, require drone strikes, require murder and torture and rape and violence against African and other colonized peoples every single day. We want nothing to do with that. We want our future to be on the side of African people. So we want to make this call to white people, whether you're in the United States, where we have members in over 150 cities, or whether you are in Europe, whether you are in occupied Azania, South Africa, whether you are in Australia, whether you're in France, where they're doubling down on their attacks on African and Arab people and Muslim people in the face of, oppressed people fighting back and resisting the conditions that they face there. Whether you're in the UK, where or in Belgium, where African people have courageously risen up and taken down these hideous statues of Leopold II. If you're a white person in one of those places, you don't have to sit on the sidelines, and you cannot sit on the sidelines. You can join the African Revolution. You can unite with the African resistance, with the anti-colonial struggle for Black power and for a future and a world with no oppression, no exploitation, no oppressor nation living at the expense of the oppressed nation. So go to uhurusolidarity.org/join, uhurusolidarity.org/join, white people, wherever you are, to join the Uhuru Solidarity movement, to get organized under the leadership of the African Liberation Movement, and to build the movement for reparations to African people. We're going to be building a campaign to target and go after the white ruling class, and to say to whether it's the City of London or Wall Street that they must pay reparations to African people. Belgium must pay reparations. The Belgian ruling class must pay reparations. And we have a responsibility as white people, because we all owe reparations, to wage class struggle with our ruling class and demand that they pay the ultimate price of reparations for the horrors that they have committed and which we have been complicit with against African people for centuries. So I want to thank again Secretary General Luwezi, Chairwoman Penny Hess, Chairman Tafari, and everybody who has joined this event tonight. And again, want to make a serious call for white people anywhere and everywhere to join the African Revolution by going to uhurusolidarity.org/join and join under the leadership of the African People's Socialist Party. Uhuru.
All right, Uhuru comrade, Chair Jesse Neville of the Uhuru Solidarity movement. We have heard the speakers so far, so I hope everyone has been benefiting or being able to see the significance of this whole process from its beginning. So I want to go right ahead. I see a lot of comments here on the comment sections here on the Zoom, as well as on Facebook. The first person that I want to recognize is Jean Boissa. Jean Boissa here on Zoom, who says, which type of reparations do we as Alkebulan children or Embo Kingdom want for our land? I think what he's asking is that what type of reparations are we looking for? Then he says, shall we rather occupy Belgium? And then the other question from the same person says, how do we regain our dignity? And also, where do we join if we are in South Africa? I just want to respond quickly to the last one, to say if you're in South Africa, just like when you're in anywhere else in the world, just go to apspuhuru.org and fill the 123 contact form. You will find it there, and then we will call you like almost immediately. So just go to apspuhuru.org. I don't know on the question of reparations or whether we should occupy Belgium or how do we regain our dignity. I think anyone can answer that question between the two of you, comrade Penny Hess and SG Luwezi Kinshasa.
So I appreciate the questions of this comrade, Jean Boissa, and also he wants to join. That's really good. I appreciate that. And we want to build a new world. That's what we're saying. And as the chairman says, the reparation is a question of revolution. You know, we have this saying, this is a discussion ongoing in the Congo, the rule of law, this question of a state, this question to end impunity. That's everyone who wants to get elected. That's what they're promising to the people. I will end impunity. I will implement the rule of law. But who is law? Who has defined impunity? We say colonialism is the source of all impunity. And the bourgeois state, the colonial state, cannot provide justice to us. So we are calling for the international tribunal. We want to have an African tribunal that we will bring all our criminals to court. The Belgian government, the US government, all the corporations who are responsible for all types of crime and the war in the Congo, the war that has killed a million and continue to kill. You got to remember the war is not over yet in the Congo. Killing takes place every day. We want to take them to our own courts. So we have the responsibility to build a new state, the people's state, the African working class state, international state. That's a black power state. And this is really significant. We don't we don't talk about occupying Belgium, but what we need to do in Belgium is build a movement, open up a new front of African revolution in Belgium. The African working class in Belgium must have access to African internationalism so they can join or build on the ground where they are the African People's Socialist Party, so we can begin to wage a struggle for reparation from a white colonizing society of Belgium and the rest of Europe. This way, the white population become accountable for colonialism, which is responsible for all the developments they are enjoying throughout Europe. So that we have the obligation to create the African Socialist Party in Belgium. If you are in Belgium, you're listening, that is your obligation, that's your duty to do. And of course, one of the work the APSP, the African People's Socialist Party, will be doing in Belgium is to win genuine solidarity from white people in Belgium to join reparations as a material solidarity to African revolution in Belgium. That's, reparation will begin to take place in the dynamic of that relation. As we do the work to win the necessity of the world to recognize the legitimacy, of the African Revolution, the leadership of the African Socialist Party as the leading of the anti-colonial struggle of our time, and that the work of white people is solidarity work, not charity in Europe. This has to be done because there is a lot of charity work in Europe that includes a lot of white people and also Africans too. We want solidarity, and also the question of you talk about occupation. We are in a war of ideas. We want to occupy all the space. African internationalism has to be everywhere. So in that fashion, we want to occupy Belgium politically, ideologically, occupy the ground, organize, have the African working class organized, have white people too organized as African internationalists. This is the way the struggle for reparation would begin to develop and begin to push out, negate the struggle for charity, which is a cover for imperialism and also cover for the African petty bourgeoisie, because that makes it look like as if Africa owes money to Europe, to imperialists, and therefore Europe has an excess of generosity and giving us some money. We don't want to hear things like that. And that's basically what I can say on the question of reparation.
Uhuru, I don't know if Chairwoman Penny also wants to respond on the question of reparations, or if I should go to the next
Uhuru.
question.
Well, I'll just be
Uhuru.
really quick. I think that I think that SG Luwezi said it all, but that the question of reparations and what is owed is reparations as put out by the African People's Socialist Party is a revolutionary demand. And everything that white people have is stolen from Africans and stolen from the colonial domination of other oppressed people on the land where genocide was committed against indigenous people in the northern and southern hemisphere of the Western Hemisphere. And I think that the fact is everything is owed. And the African People's Socialist Party first had the first tribunal on reparations to African people in the US that was held in New York in 1982. And it ruled in 1982 that $4.1 trillion was owed just from stolen labor of African people inside the US alone. And we know that colonialism, the vast wealth of Congo alone, and the vast wealth of Africa, and the stolen labor of Africa, and the gold, and all of the resources that have made, there's no other wealth out there. All the wealth that we have is stolen, and it's got to go back. And that whether Africans would want Belgium or not, the fact is that after the destruction of imperialism, there won't be white people, as the chairman said, because the question of race was formed through the assault on Africa. And that's what created the concept of white. And when Africa is free, there won't be race, there won't be borders. And that white people must be under the leadership of the African Revolution or go down with imperialism. So if anybody in Africa wants Belgium, it will be theirs, they can take it. Reparations is everything, and it must be paid back. It must go back. That is the revolutionary demand. There is no other revolutionary demand. That is the essence, and that is how Chairman Omale Shatella has laid it out. Uhuru.
Uhuru. Thank you, Chairwoman Penny and SG Luwezi. I'm just going to read this comment that maybe you might want to comment on, SG Luwezi, but I'll go immediately to another question. This is from Rose. Rose says Kalonji was in Kasai. And then it also says the massacre was in 1959, not 1949. And then the question that I'm going to read is from Diop Olubala. It says, was the failure in the part of Lumumba not destroying the colonial state and seizing state power, like contributing to the outcome? So I basically is asking whether the failure on the part of Lumumba was not destroying the colonial state and seizing state power.
Yeah, thank you. Let me just begin with the comment made by Sister Rose. The secessions, you had two leaders of secession, Chombe in Katanga and Kalonji in Kasai. So if I say Kalonji in Katanga, that was an error. But Kalonji in Kasai, that's definitely that's it should be. But regarding the massacre, no, definitely I was not talking of the 1959 massacre. That was in January in Kinshasa. That is the rebellion that shook Belgian colonialism forever. Figures give like 200 people killed in January 1959. No, I was talking of the massacre. Actually, it was no 1949. I appreciate the intervention. That's why we want the massacre to intervene. So great for that intervention. It was 1941. It was happening during the so-called World War between the bandits to share, to redivide the world. As in the same time, the Belgian colonizers mobilized Africans to go and fight for them in the Middle East and Brimani, North Africa, all these places. The same colonial Belgian army was killing us in Congo. You know, they say Hitler is preventing them from being free, but they were killing us at the same time as pretending to fight to combat Hitler. So Hitler was not in the Congo, but the Belgian army from Leopold II up to 1941 was killing us. So That was 1941. I saw the statistics for 120 days. Other figures differ, but that was 1941, and it was the 9th of December, 1941. That's how the workers were killed. In fact, all the efforts to build a memorial has been sabotaged by the African petit bourgeoisie in the Congo, because that will deepen the African working class consciousness of the workers. If every time you go see that memorial and it tells you 120 of us were killed, that's in the process of demanding a better pay and better conditions. And when a couple of days before, the white workers of the colonizer nations who were in the Congo went on a strike, and all the demands were met. So the African workers said, "What? We too are going on a strike." And the response was the massacre. And the person who led this massacre is the governor Marron. Governor Marron. I want the Africans to get that name. Governor Marron is a murder. We know Leopold II, but Governor Marron. Only C is missing in that word to make it Macron, but it's Marron. And regarding the response of the comments of Comrade Diop, that's a great intervention too, because you heard the chairman speaking about Pan-Africanism, that the failure of Pan-Africanism basically lay out the ground for the failure basically of the overthrow of Lumumba and Nkrumah himself. If you're Pan-Africanist, the word Pan-Africanism expressed itself in the world in Manchester Conference 1945 under the leadership of George Padmore and W. Du Bois, who worked from Nkrumah. So the only thing you have to do, mobilize the masses, you create your organization, mobilize the masses, positive actions, they call it, win elections, basically win the parliament and be non-violent, pacifist. And then you negotiate with the colonizers and they give you the government. But the real power is always in the military, in the army, in the state. We already said all along, democracy is a form of a state. So if Nkrumah went to power, if Lumumba went to power in democratic elections, what was the form of the state? It was the colonial state. And Lumumba realized that. And the rest, is a history. So if masses were not prepared, organized to defend every gains made against the colonizers, like the Mau Mau were doing in Kenya, like the UPC was doing in Cameroon with arms. You go defend all the gains you made against the colonizers. So that was used against him. And also, the question of state was the question that was debated in a conference Pan-Africanism organized all along. The question of class, what class should go to power, and what's the relationship of class and the state? So for the African petit bourgeoisie, the independence of Africa was a reform of colonialism, not to eradicate colonialism, but to reform colonialism. Basically means white power gives the administration, state apparatus, the parliament, to the African petit bourgeoisie, and everything stays the same. The workers stay in their place, oppressed, poor as usual. And Lumumba opposed that, refused that. He wanted the workers to benefit. Then you go change the relationship for power. How you can do it if you don't have a state, if you don't have the army, if you don't prepare the workers? So it was a failure of Pan-Africanism. We provide the leadership during that critical time in our history. That's the same when the UN came to Africa. It was another branch of colonial army came into Africa. So Lumumba has to face the Belgian army, the UN army, all the mercenaries, the white power who organized around the world. They all came to Congo. Where were the army of Pan-Africanists? No, Pan-Africans were pacifists, and the pacifism, is a opportunist position. So opportunistic philosophy, is opportunist practice. That's where it leads to wrong philosophy, wrong ideology will bring the wrong practice. For all practical purposes, it will lead to opportunist consequences. So that's basically the lessons we have to draw today. That's why we say from the very beginning, fight for black power. Fight for black power, which means fight for international state. Black power will be born as international power, international state, because no black people will be free if they don't have black power in their hands. And no way imperialism can be overturned if there is no black power to overturn it. That's why Chairman says the road to socialism is painted black, but the road to democracy is also painted black, because no black power, forget about democracy. And that's just everything is just hypocrisy and lies. From Obama to Mandela, everything they say about democracy, just lying to black people. It's not democracy for the workers, it's democracy for the oppressors, and we oppose to that.
Horo, thank you, S.U. Luwezi, for that response. Indeed, we emphasize the point of power. Power, that's what we're fighting for, and African people should not shy away from that if we are serious about our freedom. So I want to go ahead and read the next question, which is from Asa, who is the SG of the APSP in occupied Azania, and he's asking whether there's a relationship between the current Congo government and the French government today.
Oh yes, yes, there is. People have to know that the U.S. and the French, for sometimes, they have been in a fight for influence over Congo, over that region. It led to the massacre in Rwanda. 1 million, about that Africans dead in 1994, and the French lost, and the U.S. won it, and the U.S. came to Congo, dislodged French. All the U.S. were responsible for creating the government of Mobutu in the first place, but at the time Mobutu overthrew, the French had influence in the Congo, so they lost there too. And now there is a presence of China in the Congo, and so the Europeans, they want to control that, they want to limit that. So there is a convergence of interest between the US and the French to be in the Congo at the expense of China. The rise of China is really serious in Africa and is feared by the other competitors. So what the French are doing, they are basically also they're playing basically double approach. They are working with Kagame in Rwanda, because most of the key minerals now, like coltan, gold, go through Rwanda before it's being exported, and some goes through Uganda. That is what the white power imposition on African people bourgeoisie in the Congo. They have to be dominated by the African people bourgeoisie in the region, particularly Uganda and Rwanda. So you have the French in bed with Rwanda government, conceding to all domain of the Rwanda government, and in the same time, they are also trying to build a relationship with Tshisekedi, who is in power. And Tshisekedi came to power in a contested way. According to the bourgeois, sources, including the Catholic Church in the U.S., they say Tshisekedi did not win elections for you to want it, and Joseph Kabila made a deal with Tshisekedi so Joseph Kabila can stay in power, not being the president. Stay in power means the parliament is controlled by followers of Joseph Kabila. The army is controlled by the main women of Kabila. The province is controlled by the men and women of Kabila. The Senate is controlled by Kabila. So the Tshisekedi only controls the presidency because he didn't win the election, so he has no enough power to bargain against Joseph Kabila. And so the French, and they're also trying to build a relationship with Felix Tshisekedi, because they want to buy influence in the case they can negotiate power with Tshisekedi, because everything is for grab. Kabila can't openly claim to be the leader in the Congo. Tshisekedi knows he didn't come to power in a clean way, so he's looking for allies, for France to back him up, and France is one of them. So in that sense, whatever relationship they're going to have will not benefit Africa. It's going to be an imperialist relationship with a neo-colonial power. So we don't want that. The only thing we want from France is solidarity from genuine anti-colonialists in France. But that's the work that the African People's Socialist Party has to do. We have to win enough people to be organized in France. We are in France. We have a party in France. But now the work has to develop so we can win not just Africans come more in the party, but to win solidarity amongst the white people in France, and so we can have a really genuine relationship based on material solidarity with black power in the Congo. So we don't want the Tshisekedi and the macro relationship. That's imperialist, colonialist relationship, which only can exist, at the expense of Africa. What I'm talking about France, before I forget, people just have to know the French are proposing to have a law. It's a colonial law. It's going to be aimed at Africans to make it illegal to film at the police. That is being discussed in France. The land of universal rights, the Bill of Rights, that's what I call it. They're discussing that. And there are demonstrations taking place in France. People around the world need to be aware of that. And we should be organizing and saying no more colonial laws. We want reparation from France. And, we want the African community to have a control over the police in the community we live in France. That's what we want, Yes.
All right, Goro, Luwezi. I want to ask a question here. I know there are more questions, but I want to answer this question here because read this question so that Chairwoman Penny can be able to respond to it. And it's on this is from Comrade Kundayi on Zoom, and she is she's just expressing appreciation because I can't read word for word because I had to write down. But she's asking about Patrice Lumumba having to go seek for some kind of solidarity from some of the capitalist or imperialist countries, and then she's asking how is a less practical solution than, or how is that a less practical solution than APSP or Uhuru solidarity movement? And then she also asked, what is the difference, to explain the difference between subjective relationships and objective relationships with white people?
Yeah. On the question of befriending colonizer nation, what we know by the time the counterinsurgency was unleashed in the Congo, the Belgian and the US and the French, all of them, they already concluded Lumumba is a genuine anti-colonialist force. That Lumumba wants Africa to be free. He doesn't want any form of colonialism there. No more than that. He wants the workers and the peasants to be the main beneficiaries of independence in Africa. So they already sort out these is not a puppet. So what was happening there were a lot of white people who displayed, what you can say, they want to be in solidarity for the struggle by Patrice Lumumba in France, Belgium. A lot of people display that. But Lumumba died. He didn't complete his work. He didn't, we didn't know, the main orientation of a struggle. We knew it was anti-colonialist, but where was he going to? He's dead. He couldn't develop anymore, and so that's why our party is significant, because we have developed from where Lumumba couldn't develop anymore. We developed. We said white people can join the movement for Black Power, just like Black people join the movement for white power. That's what the presidents in Africa are. They join the movement for white power in the black face. All the presidents of Africa, Obama, all of them, they are white power in the black face. So we want Black power in the white face. That's what solidarity is, because if you really genuine, you don't want to live at the expense of colonized people, expense of anybody else. You don't want to have to live in the world. Just think of it. Before I finish this, we finish this meeting. You know how many Africans who have been shot dead in Africa, in Somalia, in the Congo, in Chad, in Cameroon? This you don't even say, is it probable? Is it likely? Is it less likely? Is it impossible? Is it certain? It's certain. It's 100%. Africans will be dying today from hunger. We'll be dying today trying to cross the sea. We'll be dying because we have all kind of diseases that can be treated. Dying because the boats from Europe, from North America, from China, all of them, They're taking fish around the African seas, of course, to Madagascar or Senegal, and in the process, making Africans sick. There are new diseases developing in Africa as we're talking. There are fake medicine in Africa everywhere. People taking those medicine and they're dying because of colonialism. We are those of us who have AIDS, HIV, Ebola, you name it. You know, this is the precondition for the success of capitalism. You know, so when we're talking of solidarity, it's coming to the conclusion you don't want to be part of that kind of world. You want to be with the majority of humanity. You want an honest world, and it can only come if there is no colonial relationship anyway. And for white people, the first step is to join the revolution. You know, you join the APSP, you join the USM. This needs to happen. You know, and that's the way forward. And that's why we have to criticize opportunism in a very serious way. And it's everywhere in Europe, everywhere in the US. You go what they call the left. We call them the white left in France, in England, in Belgium. So we have to defeat opportunism. And that's how the revolution is going to be built. The movement is going to be built by defeating opportunism everywhere. In Africa, in the United States, in Europe, everywhere, opportunism has to go. Because black, revolution can only, develop free from opportunism. And on the question of subjective relationship, okay, you see that all the time. You see relationship between Africans and Europeans, white people and black people. And they'll tell you we love each other. Nothing to do with colors, nothing to do with politics, nothing to do, the fact of being white is just love. No, we're living in an objective world. Take an example. The sea exists. Water exists in the sea. Water does not ask us if they should exist. It's just there. It's objective reality. You like it or not, the sea exists. You like it or not, forest, mountain exist. Just the same we like it or not, we are in a world built of colonial slavery. Millions of people wiped out, killed, raped, dismantled, tortured. That's how what you call it? Take the company that makes mobile phones. You can't separate the rape of women in the Congo to produce coltan. The war, we produce coltan at gunpoint in the Congo, at rape. That's how coltan is being produced, diamond and things like that. That's objective reality. You like it or not, that's the way mobile phones were made. That's the way industrial revolution was made. That's the way first democracy, the universal bill of rights were made. That's the way the United States was created. That's the way. That's the objective reality. It's nothing you do how you feel, what you like. So you have to respond to that. Since you're going to respond to that, then the starting point is going to be colonialism, not how you feel, how you perceive, how much love you have, how much reggae or music, how many black friends you have. It's not that. You have to have a position. Do you want to have your relationship based on rate of Africa, Americas, or the vast majority of the people of the planet? If you say no, how would you fix it? You join your place, the colonized. You join the slave, and there should be the leadership because they have no interest in lying, in bringing mysticism, things like that. We have no time for that. You want science? Everything must be clear. Everybody must be clear. The target is clear. Our aims correct, and we move forward. And to do that, you go join. If you're white, you go join the APSP. And we have the privilege to have the leaders, the two leaders of the Solidarity organization in a rural movement right here. The chairwoman Phineas is there, and the chair of USM, Jason Neville, is there too. So, and if you're Africans, just like the brother Jean Bois in South Africa, he said, "How can I join South Africa?" Right. The chair of APSP in South Africa is changing its meaning. So that's what we want to hear. Let's go forward. Let's build a new world, comrades. Join the future. Join the revolution. Join African internationalism today.
Yes, Uhuru, yes, most definitely ST Luwezi. I don't know if Chairwoman Penny wants to add anything on that before I go to one more question here from Facebook.
Uhuru, I think ST Luwezi laid it out. I totally unite with that. This is not a personal relationship. And sometimes, because the members of the African People's Socialist Party are so dynamic, as we can see here, so charismatic, that white people want to be around them without taking any responsibility, because their politic is for African people to like them. And this is not about that. African people have no responsibility whatsoever to like us. Even if we work under the leadership, we have to do that as in our own interest and in genuine solidarity. And that this is a political relationship, an organizational relationship of white people organized under the leadership of the African Revolution, with a very strategic responsibility and a material responsibility, turn back over those stolen resources. So it's really a powerful, very, very historic relationship that exists for the first time in history, truly. And I salute the African People's Socialist Party. It's an honor to be under the leadership of this incredible, incredible movement, Uhuru.
Horo, thank you, Chairwoman Penny Hess and ST Luwezi. I want to read one more question here from Kumbia Chinia on Facebook. He's asking, can you speak on the difference between the Monrovia and Casablanca group?
Yes, well, these people use those references, Casablanca and Monrovia, the two groups that emerged during the struggle to build the Organization for African Unity. And they refer to Casablanca as the radical camp and Monrovia as the, what do you call it, the obvious sellout, but it's not correct. Both of them are sectors of the African bourgeoisie trying to dominate the political scene. And it's not because Casablanca was given the name of radical that we're really radical. The only thing you have to see, go to 63 at the conference. Who went to Nkrumah? Nkrumah lost that fight. Why? Because African bourgeoisie could not go beyond reforming colonialism. As soon as they all became head of state, the colonial state were handed over to them. They don't need African unity to reproduce themselves. Only thing they need is the colonial borders. They even passed the resolution that nobody should interfere in matters of the internal country. And when the imperialists ask them to disrespect that, they do. Museveni has sent troops outside Uganda because the US asked him to do so, and they do. Chad sent troops outside borders of Chad because the French imperialism asked them to do. Mobutu, when he was in power, how many times they asked him to send troops? Angola, Togo, all those places, he did. Why? Because imperialism asked them to do. So Casablanca camp, the other one, Monrovia camp, that's African bourgeoisie. We are on the side of African working class. None of them is on the side of African working class. And none of them, particularly the so-called radical. How can you take the Casablanca? You know who was the king of Morocco? Hassan II. Hassan II was no anti-colonialist. You go realize the petit bourgeoisie is like the wind. They are butterflies. They go with the wind. If it blows west, they go west. If it blows east, they go east. So when it appears that the struggle for African independence was gaining traction, was becoming the norm everywhere, Africans, masses demanding independence, everybody, particularly the African petit bourgeoisie, jumped on it, not to forward the interest of the African working class, they jumped on it to forward the interest of the African petit bourgeoisie. Because the workers, the masses, the peasants, all the poor, all the oppressed say, we are fed up of white power. We want to be free. And the African petit bourgeoisie realized this is an opportunity. I say, hey, I want to be free too, but I have to be in charge. I will negotiate, you stay out of the process, and we sign all the deals. Then they come out, the deal say we are free. And the deal says they're in power, they have access to money, prestige, everything, and the workers stay in their place, and the peasants stay in their place. That's what happened. So if your question is motivated by what's the way forward, the African Socialist International revolution is the way forward. The working class must lead. you go join this movement, because we have to engage in a serious struggle everywhere to occupy all the space. Not allow a single African bourgeoisie to dominate the ground anymore. The workers must lead. That's why you should be coming or watching the plenary of the African Socialist Party in February. You'll get more information if you get in touch with us.
Uhuru, thank you very much, S.G. Luwezi, and Chairwoman Penny Hess, as well as Chair Jesse Neville of the Uhuru Solidarity Movement. We are at the end of the show, and I really want to express appreciation to all the people who participated on this. I saw there are lots of comments that are there just to enhance the show, and so I just want to quickly make a few announcements before we close the show. So on December 1st, 2020, for Giving Tuesday, the Uhuru Solidarity Movement will host a 24 hours reparations telethon to raise $10,000 for the Black Power Blueprints African Independence Workforce Housing Program. White people are invited to take a stand for reparations to African people by registering, promoting, and donating to the reparations telethon by going to tinyurl.com/Giving Tuesday telethon. Is tinyurl.com/Giving Tuesday telethon to register, and apedf.org/Giving Tuesday to donate. It's apedf.org/Giving Tuesday to donate. Speakers will include Chairman Omali Yeshitela, Deputy Chair Onazine Yeshitela, Chairwoman Penny Hess, and many others. The African Independence Workforce Program will provide training to formerly incarcerated Africans to re-entering their communities from the colonial prison system. And then in 2021, the APSP will be having its second plenary of the 7th Congress since 2028. So that is it, comrades. Again, I want to express appreciation. Let's continue sharing this, spread the word. This is it, we have it here. African internationalism, we say it's a theory with a plan, and we are working, we are doing the work. So join the party, join the African Socialist Party, and if you are white, you can become a revolutionary as well by joining the Uhuru Solidarity Movement. So let's go on and spread the word. Uhuru.
Whoa, vanguard up.
Uhuru, vanguard up. Unity through reparations.